The cameras were rolling, the lights blazing, and the audience leaning forward in their seats. Piers Morgan had built his reputation on tough interviews, fiery debates, and controversial hot takes, but that evening, he was not prepared for what was about to unfold. The man seated across from him, Senator John Kennedy, wore his usual calm, almost disarming smile. But behind his eyes, there was a storm gathering, and within minutes, the entire exchange would send shockwaves across the world, with Kennedy's words echoing through every social media platform, not as another interview but as the beginning of a lawsuit, announced live on television. It started like any other heated debate. Piers pushed, poked, and tried to corner Kennedy with his trademark bluntness. He accused him of hypocrisy, questioned his record, and even dragged up rumors that Kennedy had already addressed years before. Piers's tone was sharp, almost mocking, and he thought he had the upper hand. The studio audience chuckled nervously, sensing the tension rising like smoke in the room. But Kennedy didn't flinch. He leaned forward, resting his hands gently on the table, and said in that slow, deliberate Southern drawl that carried the weight of both wisdom and warning, "Mr. Morgan, you've crossed the line." The room fell silent. Even Piers blinked, caught off guard by the seriousness in Kennedy's voice. What followed wasn't a counter-argument or a political talking point. It was something much heavier. Kennedy began to recount how, over the past months, Piers's network had aired segments that twisted his words, maligned his character, and spread allegations without evidence. Kennedy spoke about how those lies didn't just hurt him, they hurt his family, his staff, and the people who trusted him to represent them with integrity. His voice didn't waver. "So I'll tell you what I intend to do," he said finally, his eyes locked on Piers. "I'll be filing a lawsuit for defamation, and since you chose to repeat those lies on live television, I'll be making this announcement on live television too." The air cracked with shock. Piers shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his usual smug confidence slipping away. The cameras zoomed in, capturing his forced smile, his stammering attempt to push back. But Kennedy didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every word struck like a hammer, calm, precise, devastating. The audience, which had been laughing only minutes earlier, now sat in stunned silence. Some leaned in closer, others exchanged glances, as if to ask, did he really just say that? The next few moments would become viral history. Kennedy rose slightly in his chair, his presence commanding the room. He reminded everyone that words had consequences, that free speech was not free of accountability, and that platforms as powerful as Piers Morgan's carried a duty to the truth. "You don't get to drag someone's name through the mud just for ratings," he said firmly. Not without answering for it. Piers tried to laugh it off, brushing the words aside as political theater. But the viewers at home weren't laughing. Clips of Kennedy's announcement spread online before the broadcast even ended. Within hours, hashtags exploded across Twitter and TikTok. Memes were created, not mocking Kennedy but mocking Piers's stunned expression as he sat frozen, caught in a moment he could not spin. What made the moment so powerful wasn't just the legal threat. It was the way Kennedy delivered it, not out of rage or spite, but out of a sense of justice. He spoke not only for himself but for every person who had ever been misrepresented, slandered, or torn apart for the sake of clicks and headlines. People connected with that. They saw a man standing up, not just against one host, but against an entire culture of reckless words and unchecked platforms. As days passed, news outlets scrambled to cover the fallout. Some defended Piers, calling Kennedy's move dramatic. Others praised Kennedy for drawing a line in the sand. But what couldn't be denied was the impact. Kennedy's calm yet firm stand had sparked a larger conversation about responsibility in media. When Kennedy later addressed the press, he ended with a line that would be replayed countless times online, "I don't mind criticism, that comes with the job. But I won't stand by and let falsehoods be packaged as truth. If we lose honesty in our public square, we lose everything." That was the heart of the story, of the reason his reaction went viral. It wasn't about politics, or even about Kennedy himself. It was about truth, dignity, and the courage to fight for them even when the fight was messy in public. And so, what began as a fiery interview turned into a defining moment. Millions of people who had never cared much for Senate debates or media sparring suddenly found themselves inspired by one man's refusal to be bullied. The lesson was clear: sometimes, the most powerful stand you can take is not with anger, but with unwavering calm and the courage to demand accountability. By the end, Kennedy's announcement had done more than silence the room up. It had reminded the world that integrity still mattered.